A very warm welcome to all of our attendees for the Toolbox Talks every Tuesday morning. We'd like to welcome you also to the 2022 year. We look forward to some interesting things coming up. But as we are showing on the screen, we would love to hear from you what you would like to see this year in terms of health, safety, or training. If there's anything that perhaps you are in need of in your plumbing company, something you've heard of, or maybe even just additional things that we've had throughout the years and you want to bring these back, please send us an email, safety@iopsa.org, or send us a WhatsApp on 071-875-2070. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you very much to all of those who have already reached out to us that have started last week already. So today, we just want to remind you again about the tips to continually prevent COVID-19. It hasn't gone away. However, there have been amendments to legislation. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, let me know. You can send me a WhatsApp as well, and I'll send you the links to the amended regulations for COVID-19. Obviously, the current regulations that came out last year are still in force, but there have been a few amendments, such as lockdown now actually being taken away. So we are not on level 1 anymore. Obviously, everything has been lifted, but there is still those tips to continually prevent COVID-19 because of the variants that are out there. So if you can, please make sure you wash your hands regularly with soap and water for 20 seconds. If this is not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Adhere to your social distancing measures and avoid close contact with people who are sick. Then if you are feeling ill and you have a cough or you are going to sneeze, please use your flexed elbow or a tissue, preferably, and then throw that tissue into the bin. Obviously, if you have any symptoms related to COVID-19, we do encourage you to get isolated and get checked out if that is possible. Then always disinfect and clean any frequently touched objects and surfaces. This would include the tools that you are using as plumbers. If it is possible for you to do so and you've made a decision, do your part and get vaccinated. If you're not too sure about the vaccination, you've heard a lot of stories. Obviously, social media is blown up with vaccination, the good and the bad, the ugly. What is the vaccination? How do you make an informed decision? Obviously, you've spoken to your colleagues, maybe those who you know, trusted members of your company, or even your family members. Maybe you've spoken to your friends as well. If you haven't done so yet, maybe go on our course. It's a free course for vaccinations to learn a little bit more about it, see the benefits as well as the side effects of these vaccinations. And then once you've got all the correct information, you can then make a decision whether you want to or if you do not want to get vaccinated. So let's move into our Toolbox Talk then for January 2022. The first thing we're going to be looking at is road rage. And this is because last year we wanted to discuss it. It's a very important thing. And we thought, well, let's bring it back for the 1st of January, just purely because the roads are getting full again. Everyone's going back to work. And it kind of seems like the air in the world has changed, isn't it? The attitude of me first, I'm going to get there. And I'm not really bothered about any other person on the road. I will drive the way I want to drive, and I want to get there as quickly as possible. And so all we need to do is really just calm down. But that's easier said than done, isn't it? So let us take a look at road rage this morning as our Toolbox Talk to keep us safe on the roads and also to keep us healthy, because getting all upset in a vehicle is only going to increase your blood pressure. It's going to increase your anxiety, and this is going to lead to ill health. So when we look at health and safety, we really want to cover all the key components of making sure that you arrive alive. And that is our safety thought for this week. Wherever you go, wherever you travel, we want you to arrive alive. Now, there are 10 keys to avoid road rage. And a key component of good driving is defensive driving, where you anticipate the actions of others. You've heard this before. When you drive defensively, you know someone is going to cut you off long before they actually do. Sometimes we can even see it. We predict it. We can say, this person is going to do this, and then it happens, and you say, see, I told you it was going to happen. But we could actually notice it in advance. Well, what you want to do is adjust your driving style to allow another motorist to cut in line and save yourself the anger. Now, you might think to yourself, well, no, I'm not going to do that. There's always a certain type of driver that is on the road that constantly cuts us off. And if I just let everybody that's going to cut me off into traffic, I'm never going to get anywhere. Well, perhaps adjust your driving style or adjust the time that you leave. You see, because it's going to happen and you are not going to change the other person. Uh, by constantly doing it yourself or reacting in a dangerous way, you could put somebody else's life in danger as well. Now, I've seen it before. Somebody who gets cut off purposely tries to then cut the person that cut them off earlier. And their bad driving habits affects other road users. So normally what happens is it just becomes a mob mentality. One person cuts in somewhere. It's a driver that really doesn't care about anybody else on the road. And it's on a Monday morning. You've just started work. You're already late. You haven't had your morning coffee or something's gone wrong and you're just not in the mood for this. And so the reaction is so quick that we strip and we really just get irritated with the person that's done this, that we want to get them back. We want to show them how it feels. Now, often when that happens, the person that you've done it to actually doesn't really care. They just continue on with their life. You are the one that got upset. You are the one that potentially cut in front of somebody else who also is now getting upset. So it's just this domino effect. And so what do we need to do? Well, we need to adjust our driving style. Don't try and adjust somebody else's. We can avoid it by not getting into our car if you are angry. So do not drive fatigued. So if you're overworked, rather rest. And employers, please remember, if you are pushing your staff, especially if they've worked through December and they haven't had time off yet, they could be fatigued. And so we never want to get into a vehicle when we are fatigued, or especially if we are angry. Give yourself some time to cool down before driving. Otherwise, even the smallest mistake, and I'm saying it as a mistake, from another driver will seem much bigger than what it is. That's happened to me before. I put my indicator on to turn and I haven't clearly seen the person that's coming next to me. Perhaps they were coming too fast. Maybe they were in my blind side, or perhaps I just didn't look properly. 100%, I didn't do it intentionally. As you turn, you see the person immediately, you swerve back into your lane. Nothing went wrong, but the person freaks out. And when I say freaks out, they want to like drive you off the road, basically. As much as you apologize and say, hey, listen, it was a mistake, it's too big for them. And that's not obviously always only because of your mistake. It's compounded, something that they've gone through, their own emotions at the time, or perhaps just the stress of work. And it's just so overwhelming. And it's what we call the straw that breaks the camel's back. Now, while some may use driving as a way to calm down, studies suggest that this is not the best idea. So give yourself enough time to get to your destination. Running late will raise your anxiety and frustration levels, making you vulnerable to drastic reactions. So look at it as a mistake. Yes, a lot of times it's intentional, and we do know that there are certain drivers on the road that literally are just there for themselves. But you know that. You already know that. You don't need to predict the future. It's a certainty on that road. So instead of getting upset, why not just change the way you drive? It's going to bring your stress levels down. It's going to bring your frustration down. And it's going to make you less vulnerable to drastic reactions. Now, drastic reactions are those that just instantly happen. Because it's called a reaction, it's something that automatically happens. Now, what we want to do is, instead of it being drastic, we want to have a calm reaction. We want you just to look at the situation. You can feel all angry and upset and just say, breathe, let it go, carry on driving, carry on listening to this Toolbox Talk while you're in traffic. Perhaps listen to the podcasts that you have, maybe some nice music that you enjoy listening to, or anything that calms you down while driving, as long as it's not distracting you. Now, another key thing is to avoid confrontation. Find something that puts you in a good mood during your drive. Like we said, maybe there's a specific genre of music that you like to listen to, or some comedy skits. Just remember to organize this before you start driving. We never want to be in a situation where we are distracted while we are driving. Now, if you know that you lose your temper easily, find methods of regaining your composure. For example, maybe start looking up some sort of breathing exercise. I know myself personally, when I drive with my wife, she says sometimes I do get a little bit angry, and then I tend to drive a little bit faster. Or maybe I tend to just drive more aggressively. And so over the years, I've tried different techniques. And what I found best for myself is just good music. And so I've decided to listen to some good music on Spotify. There's a thing called van life, very, very chilled music. It might not be music that I listen to all the time, but when I'm driving, that is what helps me to remain the most calm. And then if I do find that I'm starting to get a bit aggravated on the road with some specific drivers, I just use my Bluetooth, I phone my wife, and I ask her to calm me down. And that seems to work 100% of the time. And so just find what works for you. I'm not saying that we are perfect and that it's never going to happen, but what we want to do is avoid that confrontation. And we've seen it all over social media. We've seen how people get into fights. Road rage sometimes even turns even more ugly, where people actually start physically fighting. And it's not just words, it's not just verbal, it becomes physical. And people have been injured, people have been shot, people have been killed, all because we were just aggravated while we were driving. And so we do want to just calm down and try and just let it go. If you can, drive nice. It does become contagious. You see, if you have that one person that aggravates you and then you get aggravated and drive the same, it's just going to happen to another person. Whereas if you allow that person to move past you, that's aggravating you, and you let it go, you carry on driving nice. The people that are around you that you haven't interfered with also continue to drive nice. And that's why we say it's contagious. It doesn't mean that every single person on the road will continue to drive nicely. But out of the 100, the 10 people that are driving badly, if you join in, the other 10 people join in, eventually there's 50 people, half of the amount of people out there are not driving nice. Whereas if you calm down, another person also calms down. And that is because you are not put into a position that hurts another person. So don't drive in a manner that will enrage other drivers. For example, tailgating or constantly swapping lanes. Give yourself enough time so that should there be an accident, should there be traffic jams, you will still arrive within time. Then follow the master driver slogan. Drive nice, it's contagious. Many South African drivers will do their best to prevent another car from joining their lane. And that means you start tailgating and try and get as close to the person in front of you so that nobody drives in front of you. But driving like this sets you up for unnecessary anger and forces other drivers to take drastic measures. We never want that to happen. Now, we did a test. We did a test to see how long it actually takes if there's a traffic jam or if something happens and you need to speed up to get somewhere. An average traffic light, so the average robot that you get to when you stop, takes 5 to 10 seconds to change. Now, it's all relative, isn't it? If you're in a rush, that robot seems to take forever. If you're not in a rush, then somebody hoots behind you to tell you that it's changed green and you didn't realize it, and so you drive. Either way, it's frustrating for you. Whether you're waiting for the robot to change and you're in a bad mood, you're upset. Or whether you're not in a bad mood and you're just resting and then you hear a hooter behind you, you then get upset with a person saying, just chill out and be calm. So in other words, we're never actually happy. What we need to do then is just remain calm. If you were driving a distance of 50 kilometers to a destination at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour, you would arrive in 30 minutes. Now, if you had to increase or decrease your speed rather, so let's say instead of driving 100 k's an hour, you drove 80 kilometers an hour, you would arrive in 37.5 minutes. So 7.5 minutes. Now, really, is your life, your anger, your frustration worth 7.5 minutes? Now, to get a soft boiled egg, in order to have a nice breakfast in the morning, takes 6 minutes. That's a soft boiled egg. Most people don't like it too soft, so they want a medium egg. That's 10 minutes. So in other words, you've boiled over 7.5 minutes to almost this point of anger to drive faster to get somewhere, whereas it's actually only just 7.5 minutes longer. Increase that, double the distance. Say you're driving 100 kilometers at 100 kilometers an hour. That's an hour. You would only take an extra 15 minutes if you drove at 80 kilometers an hour, which means you could leave 15 minutes earlier. Now, this all depends on your morning ritual, your morning schedule, and how you schedule your time. Remember, this is not how others schedule your time. This really depends on you. So is it possible for you to take the pledge? Take the pledge for 2022, and we've done this before. You must drive safely. In order to protect yourself, to protect others around you, are you able to buckle up? Never drive without a seatbelt. Do not be distracted by texting or calling while you drive unless you are on a Bluetooth headset, or perhaps your vehicle has Bluetooth, and set it up before you start driving. When you get into your vehicle and you've started it, before you get onto the road, try and set up your Bluetooth headset or your Bluetooth radio so that if you get a call, it's easy to answer it. And if you do have voice activation, that is the best method. Most smartphones actually have it today, where you can say answer call and it will answer it for you without having to take your hands off the steering wheel. Even better if you have the steering wheel buttons, that's even better. My car doesn't have that, so I have to actually press it on the phone, but I've set up the voice control now, which is a lot easier for me. Do not drink and drive. Obviously, something that we would suggest more for the December period, especially while we're away. When we're on holiday destinations, it's a lot easier for us to have a quick drink while we're going to the beach or somewhere else and then drive around. But please do not do this. Not during December, not during any time of the year. It's very dangerous and it will impair your driving ability. And then obey the speed limit. In fact, don't just obey the speed limit. Can you drive slightly slower than the speed limit? And I'm not talking about being super slow. You always get that one person on the highway driving 60 and generally in the first or second lane, oftentimes in the fast lane. And yes, it irritates everyone. We agree with that. You shouldn't be driving too slow. It's also dangerous on a highway. In fact, they actually tell you 60 or sometimes 80 kilometers an hour is the minimum speed limit on a highway. And that's why trucks are always encouraged to keep to the left. But on a highway driving 120, driving 110 kilometers an hour is not going to make much of a difference to your time. It's also going to save you a lot more fuel, and it's going to get you there a lot safer. So if you can, take the pledge and put safety first. Now, I must warn you, I do have a picture that I would like to show you in the next slide. So if you don't like gory pictures, or if you don't like seeing blood, please don't look at your screen for the next few minutes. I will tell you when it's not there. But it is just an ad about driving without a seatbelt. And so I'm going to change the screen now. So please, if you don't like seeing pictures like this, do not look for the next few seconds. Without a seatbelt, things can get really ugly. Now, what is holding you back? That's a very good slogan for wearing your seatbelt. Seatbelts are there as an insurance, same as your airbags in a vehicle. If you're in an accident, the statistics of not wearing a seatbelt compared to wearing a seatbelt or having those airbags is a lot safer. Now, I see it very often. We get into vehicles, even friends' vehicles, where their seatbelts are already connected. In fact, they're connected all the time. They sit on top of a seatbelt. They don't put their seatbelt on top of themselves. I'm going to take that picture away so you can start looking at the screen again. That picture should be away now so that you don't have to see it. But basically, if you buckle up and you put your phone down, there is less of a chance of being in a severe accident. And so arrive alive means that you need to take personally the steps to continually prevent incidents and accidents on our roads. And that means you need to do your part. We know you might feel frustrated about wearing a seatbelt. Some people say it constricts them. Some people say it's irritating. It hurts their neck. They've heard stories about people cracking their ribs while being in a vehicle with a seatbelt. My brother was in an accident at 19 years of age, didn't wear a seatbelt, and he flew right through the windscreen. And so did his fiance, who was next to him. 19 years of age, lost his life, all because he didn't wear his seatbelt. And so this is something that many, many people go through. Yes, you might be injured wearing a seatbelt, but it's not as bad as being killed in a car accident. Now, seatbelts reduce the use, the risk of death. And yeah, we've got a few stats. 45% reduction in death rates due to wearing a seatbelt. In fact, it even reduces serious injury by 50%. So yes, you might still be injured, but it reduces the possibility of serious injury by 50%. Now, 3 out of 4 people who are ejected die from their injuries. That is 75% of people. That is a staggering amount. Now, I know this because my own brother was involved in this type of thing where he was ejected from the vehicle and died. So you are 30 times more likely to be ejected if you are not wearing a seatbelt. This means that a person is killed every 13 minutes while driving on roads throughout the world. A person is injured every 7 seconds in car accidents. Every 7 seconds. And that is because many people are not taking the pledge. They are not looking at driving safely. They use their cell phones while driving. They don't buckle up. They drive while they are still under the influence of alcohol. They speed through our roads. They are reckless drivers. And what it does to us is we react. We become drastic in our reactions, and we could end up losing our own life because somebody else was unrealistically driving on the road. So is it possible for you again to take a look at this and say to yourself, I will not use a cell phone while driving? If you do need to get emergency calls, make sure you've got a Bluetooth radio. If you don't, and you find that you generally like to text while driving, put your phone in the boot. You cannot get to your phone if it's in the boot of your vehicle. Put in the cubbyhole and lock it with a key that you use to start your ignition. Somebody sent me that. They say, oh, well, I lock my cubbyhole, and so I cannot unlock it because the keys are in the ignition. Because getting a text is not going to be an emergency situation. In fact, they've got it set up on Bluetooth so they can still get phone calls if it's an emergency that they need to answer. So buckle up, put your cell phone down, drive slower, obey the speed limit, and drive sober. Now, that's really what we wanted to chat to you about for the start of the year. In fact, we will remind you about these reducing road rage or Arrive Alive protection throughout the year. Driving safely is about protecting your family. So safety should really be first when it means getting onto our roads, especially because we know our roads are so full of reckless drivers. Now, coming up next for January, we've got next week's Safety 101 talk. Again, we're just going to be looking at safety files, risk assessments, registers and checklists, and what you need to be doing while you are working safely on site. Just a few tips, and also we've got some new registers and checklists for 2022 available for you. We are only doing that Toolbox talk next week because many are still off during this week and most are starting on the 17th. And then to wrap up, we are looking at Can I Do My Own Safety Part 3. We will remind you about Part 1 and Part 2. And again, we want to release that free safety file for all our plumbing members. So again, these Toolbox talks brought to you by our OPSA. Get in touch with us, safety@iopsa.org. They are designed and presented by ourselves at OHSS Consulting. If you'd like to get in touch with us as well, that is info@ohss.co.za or WhatsApp 071-875-2070. All of these Toolbox talks are still accredited by SIOSH as well as PRB. So you can claim your 1 CPD point by following your claims for CPD points through SIOSH website, as well as your 0.25 PRB CPD points. So again, the safety thought for this week is arrive alive. Then don't forget those tips to continually prevent COVID-19. So thank you very much for joining us this morning.